Listen closely, because what I'm about to tell you is meant for those who are stepping into a new level of power and purpose. Your post got them panicking. Do or die. Because you reached the position they swore no one could qualify for. And by doing that, you confirmed their worst fear. Your rise is real. Your achievement rattled someone connected to hidden power circles, someone who believed that only the elite, the protected, or the dangerous could ever stand where you're standing now. Your progress has shaken his confidence, disrupted his thinking, and thrown his entire world off balance. He's tied to covert networks, high-pressure systems, and people who operate behind the scenes. And as he sinks deeper into that world, his mindset is slipping into fear. He thinks you're being pulled into something that changes people, reshapes them, makes them tougher, sharper, and more unstoppable. What terrifies him isn't the danger around him. It's the possibility that you will rise even higher, break every expectation, and rewrite limits he once believed were permanent. Before we go deeper into this message, pause for a second. Hit that like button. Subscribe to help us reach 5,000 subscribers. And drop the number 11 in the comments to show you're locked in and ready. If you're truly committed to your growth, you'll stay with this until the end, because you already know this message is meant for you. And once you hear it fully, your mindset and your path forward won't be the same. When you shared that post, you didn't just publish words. You detonated a truth bomb in a place where people were comfortable hiding. Your post rattled the ones who were watching from the shadows, convinced that you would never dare to step into the territory they guard so fiercely. They thought you would stay quiet, stay small, stay predictable. Instead, you showed them that you have a voice sharper than their silence, and a courage louder than their whispers. Your post didn't create panic because it was bold. It created panic because it was honest. And honesty scares people who rely on illusions. They have built their confidence on the assumption that nobody would challenge them, expose them, or rise beside them. But your words cracked the foundation they stand on, and for a brief moment, they felt the world tilt against them. The truth is, some people fear your growth more than they fear their own failure. The second you showed them you were ready to level up, they realized they no longer controlled the narrative. That's why your post shook them so deeply, because it reminded them that greatness doesn't need permission. For years, people around you set invisible ceilings, telling you which doors you were allowed to walk through and which dreams were too big for you. They convinced themselves that certain achievements were meant for a selected few, people with more connections, more privilege, or more influence. But you refused to accept the limits drawn by people who never believed in limits themselves. When you reached the rank they thought was impossible, you became a living contradiction to their excuses. You showed them that dedication is stronger than gatekeeping, and that persistence will always outrun entitlement. Your success didn't come from luck. It came from discipline, from nights others slept through, and from efforts they underestimated. Now, they're forced to confront a truth they've avoided for years. You weren't limited by your environment. You were limited by their imagination. And the moment you outgrew their fears, you outgrew their expectations too. The moment you crossed that finish line, something shifted in the minds of those who doubted you. Your victory wasn't just a personal win. It was evidence that their predictions were flawed, their judgments were weak, and their confidence was misplaced. You didn't destroy them with words, you destroyed them with results. Your success confirmed what they secretly feared, that the person they tried to ignore would become the person they could no longer avoid. You proved that effort has a louder voice than opinion, and achievement has more power than criticism. They aren't terrified because you won. They're terrified because you proved they were wrong. People don't panic when you rise unless your rise exposes their decline. And whether they admit it or not, your growth has revealed truths they aren't ready to face. There is someone who watched your rise with more fear than admiration. When he discovered how far you'd climbed, it shattered the image he had of you. He thought you would stay behind him, beneath him, or somewhere safely out of his competition. But you didn't just catch up, you surpassed the limits he thought were unbreakable. The truth he discovered wasn't about you. It was about himself. He realized that the obstacles he blamed for his situation weren't real. They were excuses, and your success exposed them. That realization floods him with a heaviness he can't shake, because the world no longer fits the narrative he built for comfort. People break not when they lose, but when someone else proves they could have won too. And that's exactly what your rise did. Showed him what was possible and reminded him of what he never dared to try. Every milestone you achieve hits him like a wave he can't escape from. It's not jealousy, it's psychological pressure. Your progress has become a mirror, reflecting what he could have been, and that reflection burns. He feels overwhelmed, overstimulated, almost haunted by the thought that you kept moving while he stayed still. Your growth has reached a point where he can't ignore it anymore. Every step you take forward feels like a step he didn't take. His senses are overloaded with the contrast between his potential and his choices, and he's struggling to understand how you managed to do what he believed was impossible. But your success isn't meant to hurt him, it's meant to inspire him. Pain is just the first stage of awakening. Eventually, he will either rise with that pressure or let it crush him completely. He appears calm on the surface, but beneath his exterior is a world full of networks, alliances, unspoken rules, and silent battles. He is surrounded by groups that thrive on power dynamics, competition, and hierarchy. These circles are intense, ruthless, and often unforgiving. And as he continues navigating them, he becomes more entangled than he ever intended. The deeper he goes, the more he realizes how demanding these environments can be. They shape people, push them, and sometimes twist them into versions of themselves they don't recognize. He is learning the hard way that these circles are not built on friendship. They're built on advantage. Seeing you rise threatens his position within these groups. It challenges the narratives he has been relying on to survive. And while he tries to stay grounded, the weight of the expectations he carries is beginning to take a toll on him. The higher you rise, the more eyes land on you, some curious, some impressed, and some intimidated. These high-profile individuals observe your progress quietly, calculating what it means for them and their position. They watch with a mix of caution and admiration, unsure whether to welcome you or prepare for you. Your rise has also placed him under their watch, forcing him into a spotlight he never expected. Every move you make indirectly affects him, creating pressure that grows with each achievement. He feels the presence of these silent observers, analyzing every shift in your dynamic. But remember this, people only watch those who matter. If you were irrelevant, nobody would be paying attention. Their attention is proof of your potential, not a threat to it. The pressure he feels today will change him tomorrow. No one can carry this level of tension and remain the same. His mindset is shifting, his priorities are rearranging, and his sense of identity is being redefined. Next year, he will either emerge stronger or more exhausted than ever. Your growth has forced him to confront parts of himself he's avoided. It's making him rethink his habits, his ambitions, and even his excuses. That kind of self-reflection is painful but necessary. It breaks down the old version of a person before a new one can be built. Whether he rises or collapses depends on how he reacts to your success. Does he use it as motivation? Or does he let it become a weight he can't carry? He feels the pull of negativity, fear of failure, envy, comparison, insecurity. These emotions cloud his judgment and distort his thinking. They're not supernatural forces. They're psychological reactions to pressure, uncertainty, and self-doubt. These thoughts whisper to him that he's falling behind, that he'll never catch up, that your rise means his downfall. But none of that is true. His real battle isn't with you. It's with his own mindset. The darker thoughts only win if he lets them. If he learns to interpret your success as inspiration instead of intimidation, everything changes. But until he makes that shift, he will keep fighting shadows that exist only in his mind. Success, real success, can be isolating. He's drifting away from the comfort of ordinary life because he feels trapped between two worlds, one where he wants to achieve something great and another where he fears being left behind. This emotional gap makes him feel disconnected from people who once felt familiar. The pressure he carries keeps him from enjoying the small things he used to love. Every loss feels bigger, every mistake feels heavier, and every comparison feels sharper. Instead of connecting with others, he isolates himself, hoping the world won't notice how overwhelmed he truly is. But isolation doesn't protect him, it limits him. What he needs isn't distance, but direction. And your rise might be the map he never knew he needed. People in positions of influence see potential even when someone doesn't see it in themselves. They recognize his vulnerability as an opportunity to guide him or control him. These powerful figures attempt to pull him into their systems, hoping to shape his decisions, his beliefs, and his identity. He feels torn between wanting to fit in and wanting to remain himself. The more he seeks validation from them, the more pressure he feels to become someone he is not. It's a difficult path to walk, especially when he isn't sure who genuinely supports him and who simply wants to use him. But his greatest power lies in choosing his own direction, not the one others want for him. Your rise serves as a reminder that success is built on individuality, not obedience. He watches your success with mixed emotions: pride, fear, admiration, and uncertainty. Deep down, he worries that your rise will take you into the same high-pressure, cutthroat circles he's struggling with. He fears you'll face the same battles, the same loneliness, the same mental strain. The thought of you experiencing what he experiences weighs heavily on him. He doesn't want you to lose your kindness, your confidence, or your authenticity. He thinks that your ambition might pull you into environments that don't care about your well-being, only your results. But what he doesn't realize is this: you rise differently. You lead with intention, strength, and clarity. You don't dissolve into the environment. You transform it. In his overwhelmed mind, he imagines your rise turning you into something sharp, cold, or unapproachable, someone who no longer relates to him. He's afraid you'll change in ways that make you unreachable, unstoppable, and intimidating. But that fear is rooted in his insecurity, not your reality. Yes, you are becoming stronger. Yes, you are becoming more resilient. Yes, you are evolving. But strength isn't danger, it's freedom. Growth isn't intimidation, it's inspiration. And transformation isn't losing yourself, it's becoming who you were always meant to be. He fears the danger of your growth, but what he calls dangerous, the world calls powerful. In his most anxious thoughts, he imagines a version of you that doesn't exist, one who abandons empathy, turns ruthless, and uses success as a weapon. But that image isn't about you. It's a projection of his fear, his insecurity, and his struggle to understand his own journey. People often misinterpret others' evolution when they're afraid of evolving themselves. What he sees as danger is simply your independence. What he sees as threat is your confidence. What he sees as darkness is your refusal to shrink yourself to make him comfortable. You are not becoming a villain. You're becoming unstoppable. And the world needs more people who rise unapologetically. His warning, though misguided, comes from a place of panic. He genuinely believes he's protecting you from the pressure, competition, and overwhelming expectations that come with rising too fast. He fears you'll lose yourself because he feels like he's losing himself. But you're built differently. You don't lose yourself in the climb. You discover yourself in it. Every challenge reveals more of your strength. Every achievement uncovers more of your purpose. You're not rising to escape who you are. You're rising to become the fullest version of yourself. His fear is understandable, but your path is undeniable. Keep climbing, keep growing, keep breaking the ceilings they swear can't be broken. Because your journey is proof that success doesn't change you. It reveals you. The instant you started moving differently, more focused, more disciplined, more determined, people around you felt something shift. They didn't react because you were suddenly better. They reacted because your commitment exposed their lack of it. Your rise didn't threaten their position, it threatened their excuses. And that's what shook them awake. Your improvement forced them to confront a truth they've ignored for years. They could have grown too, but they chose comfort over courage. Watching you evolve made them realize how much time they've wasted waiting for the right moment. And now, seeing you step forward is a reminder of everything they chose not to chase. But that wake-up call wasn't meant to shame them. It was meant to inspire them. You're proving what happens when someone refuses to settle. Your rise is a message to everyone. Greatness is not accidental. It's intentional. And you're living proof of what happens when intention becomes action. The more you improved, the more uncomfortable they became. Not because you did anything wrong, but because you challenged the quiet agreement they had with themselves to stay the same. Your progress became a spotlight, revealing the corners of their comfort zone they had kept hidden. Suddenly, their excuses didn't feel as convincing as before. They weren't angry at you. They were angry at the mirror you unintentionally held up. Humans protect their comfort fiercely, and when you stepped outside of yours, it made them feel exposed. The truth is, your growth reminded them that comfort is a slow and silent trap, and some of them weren't ready to admit they were stuck. But your journey shows a powerful lesson. Comfort zones collapse the moment someone dares to outgrow them. And while they may feel uneasy now, one day your courage might be the blueprint they follow to escape their own limitations. The first time you outperformed them, it wasn't your success that frightened them. It was the realization that you were capable of more than they ever imagined. They weren't prepared for you to surpass them, and the shock left a crack in their confidence. That fear wasn't about losing their place. It was about losing control of the narrative they built around you. They always assumed you would remain predictable, someone who wouldn't challenge them, someone who wouldn't rise too high. But the moment you did, they felt the ground shift beneath their feet. Their fear came from understanding that if you could outgrow them once, you could do it again and again. What they don't realize is that you didn't outperform them to compete. You did it because you finally discovered your potential. Their fear is temporary, but your growth is permanent. There's something powerful about silence, and when your name entered the room, the silence that followed wasn't emptiness. It was acknowledgement. People pause for those who matter. They pause when someone's presence has weight. They pause when your progress forces them to pay attention. That silence carried emotions: curiosity, respect, jealousy, admiration, fear. People don't react like that to someone irrelevant. They react like that to someone who is becoming a force, someone who is rewriting expectations, someone who didn't ask for permission to rise but rose anyway. The silence wasn't meant to intimidate you. It was proof that you've become a topic impossible to ignore. Your journey speaks so loudly that even those who rarely pay attention are forced to listen. You didn't intend to shake anyone's confidence, but the moment you started evolving, they began questioning themselves. They thought they were ahead, secure, untouchable. But then you showed up with a new level of focus, a new level of hunger, a new version of yourself they didn't expect. Their confidence wavered, not because you took anything from them, but because you proved that consistent effort will always outshine temporary enthusiasm. They watched you build habits, discipline, and resilience, and that scared them more than any achievement ever could. But here's the truth. Your growth doesn't diminish theirs. It simply reveals the work they've avoided. And sometimes, doubt is the first step toward change. You didn't just grow, you transformed. The way you think, the way you move, the way you carry yourself. Everything shifted. And people who knew the old version of you struggled to understand who you've become. They still expect the you who hesitated, who doubted, who second-guessed every decision. But that version no longer exists. Your evolution wasn't loud, it was steady. You outgrew habits, mindsets, and environments that once held you back. And now, your presence feels different, sharper, stronger, unshakable. You aren't reacting to life anymore. You're directing it. Not everyone will accept this new version of you, but you didn't grow for acceptance. You grew for survival, purpose, and self-respect. There comes a moment when people finally understand that you're not aiming for the same finish line they are. Your goals, your vision, your pace, they're different. You're not playing small games anymore. You're not competing for tiny victories. You're building something bigger, deeper, and more meaningful. And once they saw that, everything changed. They realized they couldn't compare themselves to you anymore because you had outgrown the field. You stopped chasing approval and started chasing excellence, and that repositioned you into a league they weren't prepared to enter. It's not that you're better. You're simply driven by something they don't feel. And that difference is what separates leaders from followers. Your rise added weight to their decisions, not because you wanted it, but because they began measuring themselves against your progress. Every time you hit a milestone, they felt a push to move too. Every time you improved, they felt the urgency to catch up. It's the kind of pressure that comes naturally when someone witnesses real progress. They aren't threatened by your success. They're threatened by what it demands of them. Your achievements force them to reflect on their effort, their discipline, and their priorities. Suddenly, their excuses feel weaker, and their comfort feels smaller. But pressure can be a gift. It can create diamonds or cracks, and how they respond will define their own journey, not yours. You never planned to compete with anyone, but the moment they saw your growth, something changed. In their eyes, you became a silent benchmark, someone they measured themselves against, even if they never said it aloud. They began studying your moves, questioning your strategies, analyzing your progress. Competition doesn't require words. It requires awareness. And they are painfully aware of how far you've come. Every milestone you reach becomes a reminder of what they haven't achieved yet. And though they'll never admit it, they're watching closely. But you don't need to compete. You're too focused on your lane, your goals, and your evolution. And ironically, that's what makes you a threat. Some people fear progress, not because they hate it, but because they can't keep up with it. Every step you took forward reminded them of a step they didn't take. Every risk you embraced reminded them of a risk they avoided. Your courage highlighted their hesitation in ways they couldn't ignore. It wasn't your ambition that threatened them. It was your consistency. Consistency is the silent killer of excuses. It proves that growth is not miraculous. It's methodical. And your method is something they never prepared to face. But their fear doesn't define your path. Their discomfort is simply a side effect of your determination. Everything you're becoming is a result of everything you were willing to do when nobody else wanted to. You stayed up when others slept. You worked when others complained. You learned when others procrastinated. That's where your power came from. The choices nobody saw, but everyone now feels. They avoided the hard work, and now they're confused why you've surpassed them. They avoided discipline, and now your progress feels unreal to them. They avoided discomfort, and now your resilience looks intimidating. But the truth is simple. You did what they wouldn't, and now you can do what they can't. Your consistency became their undoing. They could handle your talent, your ideas, even your dreams, but your consistency, that's what cracked their pride. Because consistency is unstoppable. It turns average into excellence. It turns effort into mastery. And it turns dreamers into achievers. When they saw you show up day after day, even when you were tired, unsure, or overlooked, they realized you weren't rising by accident. You were rising by intention. And that realization bruised their ego because they knew they weren't willing to do the same. But you didn't break their ego on purpose. You simply honored your goals more than they honored their excuses. Your progress didn't just impact them. It made them rethink everything, their goals, their routines, their priorities, their habits. They started asking themselves hard questions they avoided for years. Questions like, what am I doing with my time? Why haven't I grown? What am I afraid of? Your rise became a catalyst for their self-reflection, not because you wanted to change them, but because your transformation showed them how much more they could become. You opened their eyes to possibilities they never considered before. Not everyone will thank you for that. Growth often begins with discomfort, but one day they'll realize your rise wasn't a threat. It was a reminder of what's possible. People expect you to stay where they met you. They build an entire identity of who you are based on the version they first knew.